It's such an honor for me to be a partner in this great movement, and also so wonderful to see this movement making some progress and actually making a difference in people's lives and in how we're structured as a society. So, thank you so much for having me. I'm going to share a few slides as we run through the facts and figures about the rollout of the $10 a day program, and showing that the things that we predicted would occur if we provided universal, affordable, accessible childcare are in fact occurring. It's in a way not surprising, but it is sure gratifying to see that the things that we argued for, in fact, were quite legitimate, and that was the point of this paper. So, I know we're pressed for time, so I'm going to jump right into the material. The full report that Laurie mentioned is available at our website, centerforfuturework.ca. So please check in there if you'd like to see the details and the methodology and the sources and so on. And of course, join the conversation online. In terms of the genesis of this work, of course, economists have argued for years, even some very mainstream economists. You don't necessarily have to be, coming from a social justice or left-wing perspective to recognize that providing high quality, affordable, accessible early learning and childcare has huge economic implications, generally categorized in three broad buckets. The first one is the jobs and economic activity associated with the actual work of providing that care. This is a big industry now, and when you grow that industry, you're growing the economy. Second, and perhaps the most important among the three buckets, is how it facilitates the greater participation in paid work by the parents of the children who are going to those centers, particularly, of course, women, given the continuing uneven distribution of unpaid care work at home. And the international and Canadian evidence is rock solid that providing accessible care leads to more female labor supply. And then there's another whole category that is harder to quantify, but also very important, which is the benefits occurring from the fact that children in these centers in high quality ELCC develop stronger capacities for learning, for communication, for group work, for problem solving, and those capacities stick with them through life. And that's good for them, obviously, and their families, but it's also very good for the economy. So as Laurie mentioned, we partnered with Child Care Now 4 years ago now for an initial report that simulated the benefits of a national child care program that we were hoping for and fighting for. Setting the bar high, we simulated the impacts of a program that would be equivalent to what's in Norway, a world leader in ELCC, that would have enough spaces for over 90% of preschool children. And we showed that those benefits would be enormous in those three buckets. And in fact, we showed and argued, and this is consistent with other research, that the fiscal impact of the economic growth stimulated directly and indirectly by that program would be so significant it could pay for the program itself. And so again, this is literally one social program. I know we throw this phrase around a lot, but with childcare and early learning, it's true. It's a program that literally pays for itself because of the economic growth that's stimulated, and then the fiscal take that governments get from that growth, not by raising taxes. And no, Pierre, not from the carbon tax, just from the taxes that are already in place. Governments get back more than enough money from the program to pay for it. Now we have the chance to see this happening. And this was, in a way, one of the most gratifying reports I've worked on, because it's one that we can all feel, I think, proud about how we're contributing to this, but also urgent that we have to defend it and keep it growing. So let me run through some of the benefits here. First of all, the direct jobs in the ELCC sector, tremendous. Net increase of 40,000 positions since 2019. You see the dip in that number during 2020. That was the lockdowns when many centers had to close temporarily. But we've regained the effects of the pandemic and then added 40,000 net new jobs since then. That's a lot of jobs. In fact, if you list the different industries in Canada that are creating jobs, the ELCC sector is in the top tier of job creating industries. Look at the other industries that are there. This is, I think, an important fact, because people in Canada assume that the leaders of economic growth are the traditional industries, coincidentally, male dominated, like resources and manufacturing and so on. And that's what powers the economy forward. And first of all, it isn't true. Look at this list. 7 of the 10 top sectors are all in the care and human services industry. Resources isn't there because natural resources have been shedding jobs, not adding them. But childcare is their sixth largest at this level of disaggregation source of new work in Canada over the last 5 years, which is something, again, to be proud about. It's not just the quantity of jobs in the sector, the quality of jobs has been improving thanks to the additional money and the negotiated provisions in most provinces around things like wage grids and training qualifications, and where possible, the unionization of these jobs, the creation of new pension plans for ELCC workers in some provinces, et cetera, et cetera. Just the average weekly earnings in the sector have grown substantially for two reasons. One, because the hourly wages are higher, but also the jobs themselves have become more regular and more full-time. So hours of work, which were traditionally lower in the ELCC sector, have increased notably and are converging with the overall average. So it's still a low-wage industry, and we've still got a lot to do to lift standards and wages and compensation and stability and training in the sector, but it is getting better, a better place to work. And this is, of course, essential to attract people to work in this sector because we need those people to keep it growing. So in aggregate, the combination of more people and more hours and better wages has really supercharged the earnings for workers in the ELCC sector, which have grown by over 2/3 since 2019. And that is a lot of new purchasing power. That's $4 billion of new purchasing power just from the earnings, additional earnings of ELCC workers during the initial years of the rollout of this program. So $4 billion, I can tell you, those workers are very good at caring for our children. I'll tell you, they're also very good at spending their money as soon as they get it, sometimes thanks to the miracle of credit before they get it. So that's $4 billion of additional spending power in an economy that's been staggering for the last couple of years because of high interest rates and the after effects of the recession. The impact on female labor supply, of course, is a critical dimension of the benefits of ELCC, and we see this happening big time in Canada, and it's very, very important. We've seen since 2019 a 1.4 percentage point increase in female labor force participation in the core parenting age cohorts, age 25 to 54 here. And that's 1.4%, doesn't maybe sound like a lot, is 110,000 people additionally participating in the labor market for paid work. Obviously, not solely because of the childcare program. There's cultural changes and women's different views of what their life should be like, more interest in paid work, etc. But it couldn't happen without accessible childcare. And this is, again, clear from the international and Canadian evidence. It's not just that more women are participating in the labor market, it's that they can work more hours as well. In the past, when women could work, they often found they could only do a part-time job while still trying to juggle the unpaid care work that they did at home. So we've seen a significant decline, 4 percentage points in the incidence of part-time work among core age women. Again, much of that since the rollout of this program began. That's worth another 65,000 jobs, full-time equivalents. So the two things together, more women and more women working full-time rather, is making a big difference to our labor market at a time when employers across the country have been very outspoken in complaining about a labor shortage and the need to attract more workers. So here is a combination of 175,000 more workers to help fill those positions. So if we put all these things together, the additional GDP that came from the expansion of the centers themselves, then the indirect and induced economic activity that came from the centers' supply chains, for example, buying goods and services from all of the private industries that supply the ELCC sector, and the downstream spending activity by ELCC workers. And then finally, the productivity that results from 175,000 more workers, full-time equivalent, in the labor market most of them employed and producing. So put all that together, that's a lot of GDP that results. We estimated about $32 billion of GDP. And remember, in Canada, the government takes about a quarter of all that and just through the existing portfolio of taxes. So government itself has collected several billions of dollars in additional revenue thanks to the economic activity from this program. Again, we are seeing this program pay for itself. This was, in a way, the most astounding fun fact that I found in this review. The economy had been staggering in 2022 and 2023 because of the high interest rates that the Bank of Canada put in place to try and bring down inflation. And we came close to a recession, but we didn't have a recession. But if we hadn't had those direct and indirect gains from the childcare expansion, we actually would have had a technical recession, which economists typically define as 2 consecutive quarters of shrinking GDP. So this was my simulation of how the benefits of the expansion of this program led to, in a way, a growing increment in overall GDP that actually saved Canada from a recession. So that's actually astounding, and it shows the important footprint. Another way that the ELCC expansion was visible macroeconomically was in the inflation side. Of course, a commitment to reducing fees in centers participating in the program by 50% in the first couple of years, heading towards $10 a day. And that led to a very substantial reduction in the average price of childcare services. And most people aren't aware of this, but when Statistics Canada goes around each month, they measure the price of bread, the price of gasoline, the price of housing, etc. They also measure the price of childcare because it's something that consumers have to buy. And that decline in the price of childcare was big enough to actually pull down the national average inflation rate, especially for 2023. At a time, again, when Canada was grappling with high inflation. So it's another sign that providing social entitlements like early childhood education is important to the standard of living, even at a time when affordability concerns were front and center. So let me wrap up. This is a very quick tour of the findings, but please check out the full report. Even though it's early days for this program, we are seeing significant benefits from it. And those benefits are entirely consistent with what we predicted. And again, that is just a wonderful thing to be able to say. And we will see those benefits get bigger as the program continues to expand, especially if we're able to address the supply constraints and get those waiting lists gone. Then we'll see the big changes, including still more female labor force participation. There's still a gendered participation gap in Canada. And that is an enormous untapped potential for our economy, as well as, of course, the long-run benefits for the kids that go through these programs. So I was heartened by these results. I hope you are too, and I hope it helps us cement continued support across the country and across the political spectrum for this program that is so important, not just for equality and well-being, but also for our economy. Thank you very much, Steve.